Nile TV International brings you analysis of important stories from different angles. Everywhere, every challenge, every hero, every change. Let's start the conversation on the Daily Debate. I'm Taghreed Hussein on the Debate Thursdays, bringing you news analysis you want to watch.
Welcome to Thursday Debate here on Nile TV International. Before we start our episode, it gives us a great pleasure, and on behalf of Nile TV International, to extend our warm wishes and a big salute to the Egyptian armed forces, our courageous armed forces, on the occasion of October War Victory. October is the month of celebrations in Egypt, celebrating this victory throughout the whole month with all the memories, with all the sense of pride that it brings in us all, with all those feelings of pride that we have for achieving such a great victory that had changed the face of history at large. Today, while celebrating the 6th of October war victory, we'll be talking about a very interesting topic about how did October victory reach out to the whole world. Definitely through a tool, namely translation, which is communication. This communication tool, which is very important and very efficient while celebrating the International Day for Translators and Translation. This is the communication tool that made the whole world understand in different languages how Egyptians have been able to achieve this great victory in October War. And we're really honored to have with us Professor Dr. Ahmed Abd Tawwab, the Assistant Professor at Menoufiya University, Professor of Linguistics. So he himself is a translator and a simultaneous interpreter, right? Hello,
right.
Dr. Ahmed.
Well, thank you, Taghreed, for having me back. It's always a pleasure to be with you. Thank you.
Pleasure, Dr. Ahmed. And I guess this time the topic is very much co-relevant.
Right.
Since as simultaneous interpreters, both of us know quite well how translation is important, how it is a key of communication, not only between individuals, but also sending messages throughout the nations, throughout the whole world. Protocols need translators. Also peace treaties need the efficient, professional translators. And a sense of communication among world leaders need also very efficient translators as well. So translation as a communication bridge is a very important tool that we are discussing, and its co-relevance to the spirit of October. How did translation manage to let the message reach everyone around the world? Definitely October War Victory is a war that has been taught at the military academies all over the world in different languages. And here comes again the important role of this communication tool, the important communication tool. Translation, Dr. Ahmed, and let me say happy International Day for Translators and Translation. With October War Victory, right, it has been through translation that the whole world would know what has happened in October.
Right, absolutely, Taghreed. You're absolutely right about that. And what a coincidence the two important events that we have here in our country today. We have 6th of October War anniversary. I guess that this is the 47th anniversary from one hand. And then we are also celebrating, as you said, that we are translators. So we are celebrating the International Universal Day of Translation as well. But let me, Taghreed, before we start talking in detail about our topic today, let me just send a big salute to our military. And let me also send a congratulation message for every Egyptian inside our country and outside the country living abroad. October, the war in 1973, it was a great, great lesson. And I think that we have a tremendously magnificent lesson that all of us should learn from. It is by hard working, by patience, by having determination, and by having persistence, Egyptians can get their target. And this is what we are witnessing nowadays. Before coming here, I was just thinking about how can we find, as you said, a correlation between both sides. 1973 war and what we are witnessing today in 2020. The time difference here, it's all about 47 years. We have common grounds between both sides. We have similarities when it comes to the challenges that we have.
Yes,
Remember,
and also through the important battle, Egypt's battle to achieve development and to achieve prosperity, and to provide the sense of upgrading the potential of the human being, because His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is putting the life of Egyptians and a better quality of life for Egyptians in the forefront. So doing so, we have the spirit of October. It is this sense of belief. In October, there was this sense of belief in our potential to achieve victory, that we can be victorious, and it happened. And today we have also the sense of belief, the belief in the Egyptians' will. And they are always supporting their leader. They are always supporting their dreams. To let them happen and make them happen on solid grounds.
Remember, Taghreed, during that time in 1973, most military experts around the world, they were saying that any sort of victory is impossible. But the Egyptians did that. They did the victory at the end. They made the crossing in 1973. Now, we are talking about the crossing of the Suez Canal at that time, and today we are making a new crossing to the future. We've been talking about digitalized world, comprehensive development, changing the syllabi, talking about the universities, and we're going to talk about that in detail today. But let me just tell you, if you just have a close-up picture, you can just see that there is a similarity between both sides. In 1973, there was a crossing, and today we have a crossing. But as you said very interesting statement now. You said that most Egyptians, they stand behind their leadership. That's very true. And remember that in 1973, again, Egyptians were unified. They were standing on a unified stand. And today we are doing in the same way because we are facing the same challenge. The problem that we have today, probably, Taghreed, is something that is, we have, and as you are following the news, the COVID-19 and all of such challenges. But also there is something that I think it's very critical to talk about. It is the awareness and the mentality and the mindset of Egyptians as well. This is what I believe in. We were talking about crossing, we were talking about planning, but let me tell you also something very, very interesting when it comes to the victory in 1973 and our topic today, which is translation. That is knowledge. So 1973, it was, I think that Egyptians were gaining knowledge. They were making a good plan. They have a good and a systematic mechanism in order to make the job done. And today, we also have the same mindset. We are hungry for knowledge. Look to what's happening today, that every single aspect in our country is a change to be digitalized. So we have already, and just a few days ago, I heard the Prime Minister talking about that Egypt is witnessing the economy of knowledge. So that is a new expression. We are talking about similarities between both sides, and now it comes the translation. We've been talking about translation and interpreting around the corner, but the interesting part here that United Nations consider translation, it's not a way just of communication, it's not a way of conveying meanings or changing or transferring from one language into another language, but it's considered as a strategic device for civilization and for the process of comprehensive development. This is what we have to look at, which is translation. It's not just a job, It's not just a skill, but it's also a strategic way for development.
A strategic way for development, and it was also during October Victory a very important and a strategic tool in order to convey to the whole world the message and also the spirit of October, how Egyptians had managed to achieve victory. The whole world was the attention of the whole world, and the main headlines of the world came all portraying Egypt's victory in 1973.
I think that really comes here when it comes to the way of translation. Translation plays an important role here in reflecting the real image. Just the other day, I was reading a book published in English by Dr. Abul Gheit, the former Foreign Affairs Minister, and he published a book about, it's entitled Peace, War, October War, and Beyond. The book was published in English language, and it's already distributed nowadays in Western circles. This is quite a bit interesting, and I guess that this is what we really need. That we would like to make more and more publications in English just to make the world be aware for such victory that happened. It was a dramatic change that happened. Remember that at that time, most military experts in the world, they were saying it's impossible for Egyptians to do or to take any action. But we proved the opposite. And that happened, again, by having training, by having planning, good planning as well, and by having, as you said at the beginning, a strong will that can make something happen on the ground.
Yes, definitely a strong belief, and this is what is very important. Translation has played a very important role in also documenting the truth, because it is a very strong and powerful tool if we're talking documentation. And since we are in the digital age, digitization is going definitely to affect and have an effect on the different specialities. And translation is considered to be one of them. What it took to achieve this victory has been transcending barriers through the tool, namely that important communication tool, namely translation. So translation and digitization.
Right. There is a strong connection between both. Today, we are witnessing another challenge. As you know, Tagreed, that we have a lot of applications based on artificial intelligence programs, which means that some people probably claim that translators' role will be diminished in the future. We're going to have machine translation. And by the way, this is an expanding program nowadays when it comes to the field of translation. But again, and that's my humble opinion, I think that it's very, very hard to focus completely on the machine and neglect the human factor. As I said, because when it comes to translation, it's not a job, but it's more like a skill.
Flesh and blood.
Right, so this is what we really need. And the interesting part about translation, it's involved in every single aspect in our life. So we have, for example, when it comes to the social factors, the cultural factors, the scientific elements, you're going to see translation in every aspect. If we would like to make any kind of progress or any kind of development, we wouldn't do that without having another language.
Yes.
If we would like to tell the world what we are doing, and I guess that this is what we are trying to do nowadays, is to send the messages to every country outside the world, it happens by having translation. So it's not just the way of communicating, but it's more than that. It's a mirror that reflects who we are.
Definitely, it is a mirror reflecting who we are. And here in Egypt, our treasure are also the youth. The youth are also today playing a very important role and also delving in the political life in this country. They are being trained to be able to take decisions and also to be in leadership positions. And this has been through the important role that is played by the National Training Academy in that respect. We're always talking, Professor Ahmed, about the spirit of October and how to instill in the youth this sense of belonging to their homeland, their love for this country. leadership programs also for the youth are very important in that respect.
Right. I think that, as you said, Tagreed, now that this is very critical work, the youth and the youngsters. There's something here that I read about, which is certain initiatives to increase the awareness of the youth. This is very, very critical point. It's all about the awareness. The question here that I have in my mind, how can we change, or how can we develop, or how can we create, or how can we formulate the awareness for the youth? This is the question that I always ask myself. And I think one of the major ways is such events that we are just remembering. Our important anniversary nowadays, October 6th war, this is very critical. It helps in making people be aware for what's going on in the world
They
today.
didn't live the war, however, they can listen to experts.
Right.
And there are always lessons taught from
Right,
October
right,
victory to the youth. How, when there was a will, there was a way.
right.
There was a victory that has been definitely transcending barriers,
Right.
and that changed the face of history.
That's absolutely right. And as we mentioned before, history plays an important role. If you'd like to understand,
And role models as well.
and the role models.
See how our great patriotic armed forces and our soldiers did, though, the equipment, they surpassed everything, and they managed to achieve victory for the nation.
That's absolutely right. And again, so the bottom line here is it happens by translation. And that's why when I was just thinking about that, United Nations considered that September 30th will be as International Day of Translation. That indicates for something very, very significant. It helps.
That they are themselves aware of the important role of translation
That's right.
as a communication tool that
Right.
can change a lot in the
That's
world
absolutely
today.
right. Remember that every war and any sort of dispute or conflict, it happens because there is miscommunication. In my last article that I published about the Universal Day of Translation, I was talking about the clash that happened between the Japanese government and the US administration in the Second World War. It happened because there was mistranslated word. Just one word changed the whole event during that time. That was in the 40s of the last century, during the time of the Second World War. So because of translation, because of the translating certain words in a wrong way, it
And also
caused a
in
disaster.
the stipulations of certain treaties. That's why in treaties you have very, very efficient legal personalities,
Right.
and at the same time you have very efficient and professional translators.
Right, agreed. And you know that I'm more involved in the field of linguistics, applied linguistics and translation.
Yeah.
We always say in the field of linguistics that any change for the meaning of any word will lead to a change in the real life. So that means that if you change the meaning of one word, it could change the whole world. And there is something very critical here, that if you control the language, if you control the way of how to formulate your language and your sentences and your ideas,
The context.
the context and the content as well, you can change everything in your life on the ground. It just by using language and just by making translation.
Definitely. You have lots of jobs, done. You can direct even people also in leadership. When we learn leadership skills, we know that there are certain terms that would work and other synonyms won't.
Right.
So definitely being translators know that it is the magic of the word
Right.
that matters, and where to put which word in which context, how to deliver the message is very important. Well, talking about the importance of translation and transcending barriers, and talking Egypt's soft power and Egypt's culture,
Right.
translation has played a very important role in the cultural aspect. Look at Naguib Mahfouz,
Right, right.
that great Nobel laureate, and how his books,
Right.
when it was sold abroad, and they knew more about his personality, about the Arab literature through translation.
Right. You know, Tagreed, and you said very critical word here. It is the soft power of Egypt. We have to remember that we have today the college, it's called in Arabic, the College of Al-Alsun. That means the College of Languages. But believe it or not, that it was built probably during the 40s or the 50s of the 19th century, during the era of Muhammad Ali at that time. So Egypt was a pioneering in the field of translation. That was like more than a century ago. So when Rafat Tahtawi, he was the pioneering figure at that time in translation, and the college was built at that time. And since that time until today, there is a progress happening. I know that sometimes it's not up to our expectations, or sometimes it doesn't meet our ambitious plans, but at least that there is something happening on the ground. Just the other day, I was reading the news coming from the National Council of Translation. There is a specialized council in Egypt here that is affiliated with every single aspect related to translation. This is a huge step. I know that we need more, but at least that there is a step happening on the ground that can lead to a full progress at the end.
Definitely many steps are happening on the ground, and we're always recalling that great spirit of October, because the spirit of October was magic. It was this sense of perseverance, this sense of will of Egyptians to achieve victory. They were behind their courageous armed forces to achieve the main noble aim, which is to achieve victory, to regain back our land, to regain back our dignity, and regain back our sense of pride. His Excellency, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, is keen always to address the nation during 6th of October celebrations. His Excellency praises the armed forces, the shield of the nation, and recalls back how October victory has regained our dignity and our pride.
President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi addressed the nation on the occasion of the 47th anniversary of the glorious October War victory. In his address speech, the president said that the great victory taught us that the Egyptian nation is always able to stand up for its rights and earn considerable respect from others. He added that the glorious October War was not just a military battle in which Egypt fought and achieved its greatest victory. It was a real test of the Egyptian people's ability to make the dream come true. El-Sisi said that Egypt's achievements over the years to maintain security and stability have been remarkable and are all well known around the world, particularly as it lies in a difficult region and unstable world. He stressed that this is evidence of the Egyptian people's uniqueness and solidarity, and reflects the ability of the armed forces and state institutions to undertake such a mission. On the anniversary of the Great October Victory, the President paid homage to the martyrs and heroes of the armed forces for leaving to us a free homeland that is under national sovereignty and does not accept submission or degradation. During his speech, El-Sisi paid tribute to both late President Anwar al-Sadat and to all mothers who instilled in their children a firm belief that their territories could not be compromised. He also paid tribute to martyrs who sacrificed their lives for the country and to the armed forces and police personnel who are still carrying out their work to protect the security and stability of Egypt. The Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces affirmed that the Egyptian army and its brave men are determined to carry on the path, protect the territory, and preserve the dignity of the people, which is tied to its national army via a covenant, a pledge, and a bond that can never be broken. Later, the head of state said that the courageous men of the armed forces are determined to continue protecting the nation's territory and preserving the dignity of the people. In his social media account, President El-Sisi said the bond between the army and people can never be broken. On Monday, the president laid wreaths of flowers at the tombs of late Presidents Gamal Abdel Nasser and Anwar al-Sadat, as well as for the armed forces martyr.